Hello, everybody. My name is Lizeth Lagunas, and this is my week 3 presentation on mediation. I will be discussing an interim report of a research project in mediation by Henry A. Landsberger. I will also be discussing the mediation of industrial conflict, a note on literature by Charles M. Remes, and I will be applying both of these to concepts in the textbook this week. This week's reading definitely focused on the importance of the mediator, the ability of the skills that they bring to the table, the ability to put together a discussion, the ability to sway the conversation, and also the effectiveness, the reputation, the confidence, and the skill that they use to carry the conversation in order to highlight the importance of each party in that are trying to come to a resolution. It is important for a mediator to be knowledgeable enough about the situation in order to be able to ease tensions and to give both parties options so that they don't feel neglected and that they feel that what they are trying to achieve is as important as what the other person is trying to argue. So I think that was one of the biggest things that I took away from this week's reading on mediation. And I think that correlates very well with the report by Henry A. Landsberger, because in this journal, Landsberger is trying to achieve a test in which he can actually analyze the skill of a mediator to see what skills will make a mediator as successful as they can be. Now, granted, I don't think there is a perfect mediator, and when I saw those 10 skills of a mediator to be successful, I really went back to the video that we watched this week. I want to say it was a great man theory, that you either have it or you don't. Because, for example, when talking about a sense of appropriate humor, I think that humor is such a thing. It's so vague that to certain people it will be, somebody can be ridiculously funny, to others it could be completely an inappropriate joke. So I think that these skills are good to have some, and that will be kind of an indicator of a good mediator. But in order to be the perfect mediator, which probably doesn't exist, you don't have to have all of these skills. I think there is a perfect mediator for a situation, but no mediator will be perfect in general as everything else. So I think that was really important. And going through the interim report of a research project in mediation, I also was able to see how important it is to understand that if the mediator doesn't work with a person, it is not necessarily to keep trying and trying again. Maybe the skill set that mediator has just don't correlate with the needs of the agency, the individual, or whatever it might be. So that was also something that was really important from this week's reading. Because this is part of building relationships. And when building relationships and a mediator is involved, the mediator has to look past the barriers that the individuals create. And from the report by Landsberger, we can see that if they keep continuously overlooking those barriers, the result will not only be the same, but it could actually be worse, because now it's just not even being productive at all. In the mediation of industrial conflict, a note on the literature by Charles M. Remes, one of the biggest things that I thought was, or stood out to me in this reading, was that mediation needs to be flexible and adapted to the particular dispute. That is something that I said when reading both this week's reading and Landsberger's article. And I think that was actually the biggest thing. When dealing with a situation, it is important for the mediator to be able to just focus on that situation. And even though they had a previous situation that might be similar, although they use similar skills, each conflict needs to have a personal touch to it, and the mediator needs to understand that. In this article, there were plenty of other theories like game theory and mutual theory that were discussed, but I think discussion of mediator personality was one of the most important things, because just like in the other two readings, it discusses the process of mediation and how it is affected by the personality and the characteristics of the mediator, which I thought was actually hand in hand correlation, and that is where Landsberger's article is discussed, and it focuses on the good and the bad in mediation. Which something that I thought was important is that it mentioned that using the personality of the mediator can add more tension to the conflict, and I think that is important because it somewhat is true, or we can see it from the outside, but I also think that the mediator is such an important part of the overall process that he does need to, or he or she does need to be taken into consideration when these theories come about. So that was my take on this week's readings. I hope you enjoyed them, and I will see you all next